Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Hello, ladies and bees and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And also, may I say, welcome to the first episode of 2025 of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Now, you might be wondering, though, wasn't last week technically the first episode? Well, I mean, sure, because, well, it was released in 2025, but then again, that was to go and highlight the top 5 animation news of 2024. This is technically the first episode of 2025, because what I'll be talking about is stuff that will be going on in 2025. Also, side note, thank you, JF, for being a new fish to start off this episode. But anyways, how are you all doing, everybody? I hope you all had a great week, or at least I hope you all had a better week than I have, because if you may recall last week, I was sick. In fact, I caught a cold, and when I was recording during the last week's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, it was only starting, and trust me, it just got worse and worse and worse from there, and it sucked. I mean, sure, it was just a common cold, but still, though, nobody likes to get sick. But the good news, however, is that I am getting better. I am at the stage where it is getting close to being over, and I'm mostly getting a lot of it out of my system. So I am recovering pretty well from there. But anyways, this is not about me. This is about what this episode is going to be about. And we got a whole bunch of stories that we will be discussing about, not just with what's been happening in animation, but also some of the things that has been happening in the world, which has been so far very chaotic. And let's just say that I'm not the only one who's starting off 2025 in a pretty rough way. So with all that said and done, now I would like to go onto the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it, folks. Are you ready now? Let's see now. Are you actually ready now? Yes? Yes? Oh, yes. Okay. I do see people are prepared. That is wonderful to see. And now, with that said and done, I believe that it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first story that I have for you today, now I promise you that I would go and discuss about this here, considering that this is a news that happened during the last weekend, just before last week's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And from there, I figured, well, you know what, I'll just save it for here in case. Whoa, excuse me. I was just about to say thank you, Edward, for being another new fish for this episode. But in this case over here, I figured, you know what? We might as well go and immediately talk about this right now. So with that said, let's go ahead and discuss about what happened during the Golden Globe Awards. So yes, as you may recall, back in what I believe to be was January 5th or 6th, if I may recall. No, I think it was January 5th. It was the Golden Globe Awards. And from there, we have seen Emilia Perez become the big winner at the Golden Globes, winning a total of 4 of them, including Best Picture for Musical and Comedy. And while there are a variety of awards, the biggest surprise that has occurred in there was for Best Animated Feature, in which the winner was none other than Flow, the little Latvian independent animated feature. And it was a massive shock considering that it managed to get the award instead of any of the other major contenders. And there were some massive competition during this year's Golden Globes for Best Animated Feature. It managed to beat out Inside Out 2, Moana 2, and oh, by the way, thank you, Jonathan, for being a new fish. Oh boy, I'm already getting a whole bunch of new fishes. I wonder if Actually, let me just go and double check. I wonder if that means if there's going to be a hype train that's already happening. Oh, wow, there already is a hype train going on my Twitch. Well. We're definitely off to a great start over here. But anyways, as I was saying, going back into our discussion here with Flo, yes, it managed to beat out Inside Out 2, Moana 2, The Wild Robot, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and what was the other one? Oh, yes, Memoir of a Snail. So this is the one that managed to get the big win. And also, just want to go and read you here a little excerpt here from my source on Animation Magazine, a little bit of the acceptance speech from the winners here. Accepting the award, director Gintis Zilbalodis, I hope I said his name right. Hold on a sec. Sorry, a little residue from my cold. Anyways, yes, the director thanked his producers, Ron Diens and Gregory Zalkman, who joined him on the stage. The director added, "This film was made by a very small, young, and very passionate team in a place where there isn't a very big film industry. This is the first time a film from Latvia has been here, so it's huge for us. This is a very personal story for me because I used to work alone. I made my first film by myself. But this time, I worked with a team. Just like the cat in the movie, I had to trust others and learn how to collaborate and overcome our differences, and I think it's very important nowadays, especially now more than ever. Thank you so much for embracing our little cat film." And here's a picture of the 3 big winners of the Golden Globes for Best Animated Feature. And oh my goodness, what an upset this was. This was absolutely unexpected. And finally, I get a chance to fully discuss about this because the funny thing is that originally I didn't really care a whole lot about what was going on at the Golden Globes. I'll even confess, I didn't actually watch the show while it was on TV. You know, it's like, whatever, you know, it's like, it feels like a bit of the same thing again and again. And if I do want to watch a televised award show, I usually just stick with the Oscars. But from there, the Golden Globes was going on. And then I got a message from a friend of mine, discussing about a few things of what's been happening during the show. And then came the Best Animated Feature category. And then suddenly he messaged me and said, Flo won. And I'm not gonna lie, that immediately caught my attention. I was just there like, wait a minute, what? You know, I'm not gonna lie, suddenly my interest massively peaked from there. In fact, I actually made a meme on social media. In fact, maybe if I could go and find it for you guys, I could go and actually, you know, might as well go and present it to you while we're here. I made this little meme. If I could just go and let's see here. Yes, here it is. I did this little thing on Blue Sky, like just to like create a little bit of an example of my feelings about what has happened. In fact, here, let me just go and here. Now, I'll give you a better example. This is from my Blue Sky, by the way. So I just wrote a little thing that was like, you know, a guy laying down on the couch while the TV was showing the Golden Globes, like, I don't care about the Golden Globes. They don't matter anyways. And then the TV says, this year's Golden Globe winner for Best Animated Feature is Flo! Which the guy, like, suddenly, like, he's lying down and then gets up like, oh crap, for real? I just figured like it was a bit of an impromptu thing that I did, but you know what? It was worth it. This is just an example to show my reaction of how I felt for the whole thing. It's just, I went from not caring at all to suddenly like, oh really? You picked that one? Well, that's actually very interesting. Because like, and the whole reason, and I mean, I just want to go and say this right now. I know that I'm not the only one who thought this way, because there are many other people whom they don't really care about the Golden Globes, but then when they heard that it was Flo that became the big winner, hold on, I got to cough again. All right, there we go. But then when they heard that Flo was the big winner, suddenly people started turning their heads and was just massively surprised. Because you got to keep in mind that it is very unprecedented when an independent animated feature or an animated movie that is not from any of the major American animation studios or any of the major animation studios in general, ended up winning the award for Best Animated Feature. I mean, sure, it is pretty common to see that in the regional Critics' Choice Awards, like the New York Critics Association or the Los Angeles Critics Association and stuff like that. Like, sometimes they would go and give it to the independent films, which in this case, even this year, some of them have been giving it out to Flow. But when it comes to like the big stuff, like the Golden Globes, the Oscars, and the BAFTAs, that is actually very rare. So seeing that they would go and actually select Flow compared to the other major competitors, that is massively huge, especially when we are in a year that so far with the animated films, they've been very competitive. Like now we actually got some tough choices, especially if I could think of the big three, or technically the big two. They are Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and even that one is just a maybe, Inside Out 2, and The Wild Robot. At least with the latter two, a lot of people think it's going to be either one or the other, that we're often going to see like a little bit of a mix that sometimes The Wild Robot will get some of this, and sometimes Inside Out 2 will get some of this. But in this case here, no. It turns out to be the underdog, or the undercat, in this case, ended up getting the win. And I'll say right now that, honestly, I have actually seen the movie very recently, in fact. And it's very easy nowadays to go and actually watch it for yourself. Because just a few days ago, Flow made itself become available digitally. Like you could go in either Amazon or Apple or whatever, and you could actually go and either rent it or you can buy it digitally so that you could go and see it for yourself. And I did see it, and honestly, I gotta say, it is definitely a very good film. It wouldn't necessarily be my choice for like the best animated feature on that whole list. I'm just going to say right now, if I would go and pick a winner myself, it would undeniably be Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. I used to be like, oh, okay, well, I'll be happy if it's either Wild Robot or Inside Out 2. But nowadays, after watching Vengeance Most Foul, I'm like, I 100% want Wallace and Gromit. But either way, though, going back to what I was talking about, yes, I did see Flow, and yeah, even though it's not necessarily my first choice of who I want to win for Best Animated Feature, it is still a very fascinating movie to watch, and it's a great film, especially with the fact that the main cast of characters are literally just animals, which really does add into the unpredictable nature to the story. And not only that, but also just the world building in general and like the story of where it would go. It's just incredible. It really is fascinating. And if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you go and check it out. In fact, I'll even say right now that now that Flow won the Golden Globes, I think that is a great reason for you to go and check out. Because I've seen a lot of discussions on the internet, and sometimes they go into like unappealing directions, and some people will say like, oh, The Wild Robot is robbed, or Inside Out 2 is robbed, or like the cringiest ones that I've seen is just people focusing on the Disney aspect. And there are many people out there that I would just see say like, well, I'm just glad that Disney isn't winning the award because they won too many awards and they suck and I hate them nowadays. And honestly, like, it really, like, the more angry they are at Disney, the more that they want to go and attack Disney with this thing, the more cringe that they become. Like, if you really think that Disney is unironically upset that they didn't win the Golden Globes, like, honestly, the problem is not Disney or the awards or in general. The problem really is you. Like, this really is a highlighted example of how this whole trend of, like, the Disney hate thing, it has really become cringe. It really is at the point where they lost the plot, and, like, the grand majority of things that they would go after Disney for are really just very, like, subjective at best and very petty and even pathetic at best. You know, like, I don't think Disney is upset that their two animated films that have made around $1 billion each did not win the Golden Globes. I think they'll be fine at that point. So I just wanted to go and, just put out my statement there that, like, it's just another example of how, like, the Disney hate thing is becoming so unnecessary and really uncool at this point. But anyways, going back to Flo, like, now that is being the big winner, a lot of people might be wondering, well, now that it won the Golden Globes, does that mean that we're going to see Flo become the winner of several of the other big awards, including the Oscars? And at that point, I'm going to say maybe. I'm not going to say that because it won the Golden Globes, it's a guarantee that it's also going to get the Oscars. What I am saying is that now we should not go and opt out Flo. I think Flo could legitimately be a competitor at the Oscars right now, where it is as likely that it could win as much as either The Wild Robot or Inside Out 2. Now, there is a possibility that maybe it'll go to The Wild Robot. Maybe there is a possibility it'll go to Inside Out 2. But now, there is a possibility that it could also go to Flo as well. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. Either way, I'd be happy. Like, if it is either The Wild Robot or Inside Out 2 or Flo, or especially if it's Wallace and Gromit, I'd definitely be happy with it. Like, these are great movies in their own right that definitely deserves a win. So, with all that said and done, I just want to say congratulations to the team who created Flo for the surprising win, and we'll see how it goes in the future awards if Flo can also be a big winner in the other award shows. All right, now with that said, I would like to go and pass this down to the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you think about Flo winning the Golden Globe Awards? Are you guys surprised as I am about it? And if you have seen the movie, what did you think of it? And also, do you think it deserves to win the Golden Globe Awards? Do you think it deserves a win, like over all the other animated films that were nominated? Let me know what you think on that. All right, so let me see here. Now, to quote one of my favorite Simpsons episodes, I don't think any of us expected him to say that. Don't get me wrong, Flo is a phenomenal movie, but I was rooting hard for The Wild Robot. With that said, this is a pretty unprecedented win, with it being the first indie film to win in this category. As for the rest of the show, Nikki Glaser was absolutely hilarious, and since I think Emilia Perez was absolute buns, I think it's safe to say both Wicked and The Substance were robbed. Really? I've actually heard some good things about the show, to be fair. Like, even though I didn't care to watch it, I actually did hear that the presentation itself, the show, was actually pretty good, and that the hosts and the presenters actually did their jobs pretty well and were pretty funny at the same time. But yeah, like, it's unexpected, but it's something that you cannot really be mad about. But also, I do want to say the statement about being the first indie film to win, I feel like that might be debatable, and that is because we would have to go and argue if The Boy and the Heron last year would actually count as an indie animated feature. I mean, on one hand, it's not like one of the mainstream animation studios that's from like the US or one of the big ones in Europe and stuff like that. But then again, I mean, it is Studio Ghibli, it is Hayao Miyazaki, so it's like, I feel like The Boy and the Heron is in kind of like the awkward position if we don't know if we would consider that either mainstream or indie. You know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of an iffy thing. But at least with Flo, like, we know that is like a 100% indie animated feature. Anyways, let's see now. While I haven't seen Flo yet, I congratulate it for winning Best Animated Feature at the Golden Globes. If I picked who should have been the winner, it would have been either The Wild Robot or Vengeance Most Foul. Pardon my pun, but for folks who just rant about Disney, whether they should or shouldn't have won, they should just accept this and go with the flow. All right. I'll give the Golden Globes props for actually taking animation seriously this time around. More animated nominations outside of the animation category being nominated, and now Flow winning. I want to congratulate that to the small crew that made Flow. The film was absolutely fantastic to see on the big screen. Also, as a cat lover, I approve it. Also, meow is now my favorite movie catchphrase. Yeah, let's be honest. I will say, Flow might be the easiest movie out there to remember some of the lines that the characters say. Like, it's either meow, woof, woof, or... You know, stuff like that. It's just a bunch of animal noises. If you know your animal noises, you probably know all the lines of Flow. All right, let's see what we got here. This is similar to how Laika's Missing Link became the first stop-motion animated film to win a Golden Globe. As for Flow, it's pretty refreshing to watch another recent silent animated film alongside Robot Dreams, the Shaun the Sheep movie duology, and Sylvain Chomet's first animated works. Also, while it's a pity that The Wild Robot didn't win any Golden Globes, the plus side is that it will be re-released in theaters this Friday. Best of luck to both aforementioned films at the Annies. Oh, really? I didn't know about the re-release. Well, then again, with re-releases, I don't know if I'll be getting that in Canada, so I guess we'll see. But anyways, let's see what other comments do we have here. Oh, there we go. Good for Flow for winning the award. I love seeing underdog movies that aren't made by Disney, DreamWorks, or Sony win. It shows that the Academy is willing to look beyond the pre-established oligopoly and are the major animation studios. By the way, just to go and clarify, the Golden Globes are not the Academy. That is the Hollywood Foreign Press. So just to clarify. Anyways, the cynical side of me still expects Inside Out 2 is going to win the Oscars for Best Animated Feature, but pleasant surprises like this one are what I live for. I mean, why does it have to be that cynical side? I mean, Inside Out 2 is a great movie. If it wins, then fine. I mean, you know, it's nice. It at least deserves a win or something like that. So I'm just saying, like, I don't see, like, why do you have to be, like, cynical or angry? Like, I don't know. That sounds like a terminally online thing. Anyways, what else do we have here? While I myself don't really care about the Golden Globes all that much, this is definitely a surprise seeing Flow win. I will admit that I was expecting either Inside Out 2 or The Wild Robot to win, but seeing a smaller animated film win is great. It basically is a repeat of what happened last year where everyone expected Across the Spider-Verse to win, but went to The Boy and the Heron. And I could definitely see it potentially being big at the other award shows, including the Oscars. Exactly. It's like suddenly for award season, it just really spiced things up for animated feature. It's like, okay, hold on a sec. We're all focusing on the emotions of the robot, but this cat, though, he knows how to move that boat. He knows how to steer his way into the awards. It could be getting it. All right, I think I'll read one more and then we're going to go on our first break. Let's see now. While I was rooting for The Wild Robot, Flow was also fantastic. It became one of my favorite films of the recent years because of how well it was able to execute its concept without any dialogue. It's the same reason why Robot Dreams was one of my favorites from last year. The news of it that it won the Golden Globes made me incredibly happy for it. Major congrats to Gintis Zilbalodis and his team. Exactly. So, you know, it was definitely a surprise, but undeniably a pleasant surprise. All right. By the way, give me a sec. Sorry about that. All right. So we're going to go on to our first break. And when we do come back, we are going to go and return with what is easily the biggest news that happened last week. And unfortunately, it will be a bit of a serious talk considering how this has affected the lives of thousands upon thousands of people. So stay tuned for that. All right, welcome back. Now, I know that I started this off by saying that I had a very rough week last week, considering that I had my cold, and as you guys all know, getting sick, no matter what it is, it just sucks in general, and it's never fun to go and get sick. However, I will say that I know that when it comes to the problems that I had last week, they definitely are nothing compared to what happened to many others. In fact, thousands of others as well. Considering that even though the year has just begun, we did face a massive natural disaster that occurred, specifically in the Los Angeles area. So yes, we are going to be talking about the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, this is not something that I could just go and have a little bit of a quick mention at the beginning of the episode before starting the whole thing. This is something that I personally feel like we need to go and highlight this in full because there is a lot to go and discuss. So, as you may know, last week in Los Angeles, or specifically around the Los Angeles County, there were massive wildfires that occurred that burned down not only acres of lands, but also burned down a lot of residential areas, down to the point where over 100,000 people had to be evacuated from their homes so that they could be safe from the fires. And unfortunately, there have been a few casualties as well. I believe the numbers as I'm recording this is around it's getting close to 20, which it is relatively low for the size of the fires that they are. But then again, the fact that there are casualties in general, it's never fun in the first place. Now, to go into the specifics of where it happened, actually, I'm using my source here on BBC to go and highlight where it occurred. So, of course, the biggest one is in the Palisades area, in which it affected both Malibu and the neighboring region. There was also some over here in Eaton, as well as a little spot in Hearst. And just to go and highlight what happened specifically, I'm just going to go and read you from my source here on BBC. And by the way, it will also mention about the updates on how things are going with the wildfires. There are now 2 active fires in the wider area, while a smaller fire is nearly contained, says California fire officials. The first one is the Palisades, the first fire to erupt a week ago and the biggest in the region. It has scorched 23,713 acres as of Monday, including the upmarket Pacific Palisades neighborhood. It was 14% contained as of Monday. Then there is also Eaton, affecting the northern part of LA, blazing through areas such as Altadena. It is the second biggest fire in the area, burning more than 14,000 acres. It is 33% contained. And then finally, we also have Hearst. Located just north of San Fernando, it began burning last Tuesday night. It has grown to 799 acres and is almost fully contained. So Hearst is almost done, or as you're going to be watching and listening to this, it should be done about now. The earlier Kenneth Archer, Sunset, Lydia, Woodley, and Olivas fires have also been fully contained. So it is still freaky to see that these fires are still going on. But some might be wondering though, what happened? What is the cause of all these massive fires to go and occur? And yeah, California has had fires here and there that have happened, but never this bad to the point that it started to affect residents as well. Well, it's a bit of combining factors. And one thing is for sure is that these fires are not man-made as well. It is just about entirely Mother Nature that caused all this. Now, if there are any human factors into it, well, it's a lot of the negative ones. Most namely, it's because of climate change, in which, right over here, just to read you some parts of it, in which it states, Although strong winds and lack of rain are driving the blazes, experts say climate change is altering the background conditions and increasing the likelihood of such fires. Much of the western United States, including California, experienced a decades-long drought that ended just 2 days ago, making the region vulnerable. Whiplash, swings between dry and wet periods in recent years, created a massive amount of tinder-dried vegetation that was ready to burn. Climate change, including increased heat, extended drought, and a thirsty atmosphere, has been a key driver in increasing the risk and extent of wildfires in the western United States, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says. Fire season in Southern California is generally thought to stretch from May to October, but the governor has pointed out earlier that blazes has become a perennial issue. There's no fire season, he says, it's fire year. So there is a combination of these naturalistic factors in there. So it's not just climate change. It's also the factor that there has been massive droughts in Los Angeles and in California in general, where it's very rare that they would get rain. And then suddenly there's also these strong winds as well. And there, admittedly, there is also another human factor that a lot of people have been discussing about is the amount of water that is available. And a lot of it is contributed to apparently this billionaire couple that owns a lot of California's water and refuses to go and actually share. So they're also responsible for some of the disasters that we have seen so far. And that's also another issue that I want to go and immediately address is how there are some things in here that the discussions related to the Los Angeles wildfires that they would go and tumble into something completely different that's not really helping the situation at all. And that's especially the case when you see it from Republicans like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, where they were desperately trying to go and politicize the issue, where they were trying to go and blame on either wokeism or DEI or whatever bull crap. Like they want to blame the existence of minorities apparently is to go and blame, or Donald Trump trying to blame Democrats like Gavin Newsom and, just of course, Democrats in general are to blame for not making things better in California and stuff like that. Like really emphasizing the political factor, but also what pisses me off is just the bigotry factor. Just using a disaster like this, desperately looking for an excuse to go and discriminate the LGBTQ plus community or trans people and stuff like that. And this really does clarify and emphasize how worthless homophobes and transphobes and other bigots are in our society over here. And that honestly, we have nothing to lose if we just criminalize hate speech. That if we separate that from the First Amendment and just make it illegal, we honestly have nothing to lose, especially when bigots like homophobes and transphobes, like as we see with people like Elon Musk and libs of TikTok, they contribute to absolutely nothing to our society. In fact, this is the main reason why it is extremely rare that you see homophobes or transphobes in the military, because they're all spineless cowards. They don't want to actually help people. They just want to hurt people in general. So why don't we just treat them like the illegal criminals that they all frickin' are? But anyways, just wanted to go and, get that out of my system. But anyways, going back to the Los Angeles wildfires, unfortunately, one of the major consequences that has occurred is that not only have there been like over 100,000 people that evacuated, but there have been thousands of people that unfortunately have lost their homes. And there is a good chance that maybe you have seen in the media in which they talked about how a lot of celebrities ended up losing their homes, that you got big name stars like John Goodman, Jamie Lee Curtis, Paris Hilton, and many more, that they ended up losing their homes as well, that, they had their big mansions around those areas, and that because of the big fires, they ended up losing them. But I will say, though, there is a little bit of a funny thing to go and actually mention is that not only did those people lose their homes, but also the ones that are notoriously far right, the ones who have far right extremist values, those people lost their homes as well. most namely James Woods and Mel Gibson. And Mel Gibson is actually, not gonna lie, it's actually a pretty funny one as well, because while his big mansion was actually burning down, he was on Joe Rogan, where he was doing his usual thing of spreading misinformation, where he was talking about these bullcrap drugs that apparently would cure cancer or like heal people from cancer, which is already proven to not be true. And of course, he would be denying climate change. Oh, how ironic that climate change deniers apparently lost their homes to the very thing that they claim do not exist. But anyways, in all seriousness though, I just want to say that regardless of who the big name celebrities are, honestly, I don't really care all that much if they lost their homes, because they're financially rich. They have all the wealth that they can to go and quickly rebuild their lives. In fact, like, these are the kinds of people who have like not just a big house in Los Angeles, like they got several homes across the world. So like, yeah, it sucks that their big Los Angeles house burned down. Well, before, they could go and actually wait, they could go and rebuild that again while they wait in their, like, I don't know, in their New York house or in their London house or something like that. These people, I know for a fact they're going to be fine. They have no trouble whatsoever. But what I want to go and focus, however, is the thousands of other people who you may not know their names, but they lost everything. That because of the fires, they lost their homes entirely, and they pretty much lost their livelihoods in general. Like they pretty much lost everything at that point. And they don't have the financial needs in order to rebuild their lives again. This is exactly why there has been tons, hundreds, thousands of GoFundMe campaigns now in which people are asking for donations in order to rebuild their lives. And sometimes they could be asking for quite a lot. And especially, you got to keep in mind, this is the Los Angeles area. So the cost of living and stuff like that, it can be quite extreme. And I know that with the subject of insurance, that's going to be a whole different subject altogether. I know that California did recently pass a law that insurers are not allowed to deny any claims, or they're not allowed to go and deny any people that need the insurance money, which is good. But then again, like with insurance companies, like that's a whole different conversation and a whole different subject altogether of how they would keep screwing people over, and that eventually the more they keep denying people, the more likely that we're going to see the next Luigi Mangione. But going back to what I was talking about, that's why we've been seeing a lot of these people asking for help. And I understand that at that point, it could be extremely overwhelming. And that, yeah, it's one thing that if you live around the Los Angeles area, you can have a lot of solutions and a lot of different ways that you can actually go and help out, including you can go and actually volunteer for a nonprofit organization to actually go and help out the people of Los Angeles who did lose their homes, who need a lot of help at this point. But if you're someone who's like me and you're not in the Los Angeles area, in fact, you're pretty far from the Los Angeles area, what can you do to actually go and help out? Well, I've done a little bit of research, and I do have a few suggestions of what you can go and actually do. So let me just go and bring up these examples. And here, let me just go and start things off with this one right over here. So the first thing you can do is actually go and donate to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. Now, this is the foundation to go and actually help out the firefighters of Los Angeles to go and actually help like grow their equipment, to strengthen their tools so that it makes it easier for them to go and fight against these wildfires or whatever fires that may occur in the Los Angeles area. And I mean, I think it could be a great idea to go and help out firefighters, considering that already they are the top contenders of being considered the heroes of 2025. So that is my first suggestion of what you can do. Then there is another one, which is the California Fire Foundation, in which their foundation is made specifically for this situation right over here. It's not built especially like because of this, but it is made like this is their purpose, is to go and help out victims of people who lost everything because of fires, rather it be man-made fires or if it's because of wildfires and stuff like that. So they're basically going to go and help out people to get themselves back up on their feet, to get the financial needs that they can, or to go and supply food, water, and shelter while they're trying to recover from the fires that basically took everything from them. So that's another idea. And then there is also the Wildlife Recovery Fund from the California Community Foundation. They're very similar to the California Fire Foundation, in which they would go and have a very similar goal where they would go and help out the victims of fire disasters, and especially in this case is the victims of the Los Angeles wildfires. So they would go and do the same thing in order to ensure that victims can be okay during these very tough times. Or especially, since we are all animation fans over here, if you want to go and specifically help out artists and animators who have been affected by the wildfires, because unfortunately there have been a lot who have, then there is this article, again, from Animation Magazine. It's called Numerous Fundraisers Set Up for Animation Professionals Who Lost Their Homes in the LA Fires. And in this article over here, let me just go and quickly refresh just to make sure if there's any updates. Okay, maybe not. But as you can see here, this is a list of all the different artists and animators in the animation and visual effects industry whom they've lost so much from the fires, and that they've set up their GoFundMe campaigns or PayPal links and stuff like that for them, so that you can go and actually help out. If you want to go and give out a donation to go and help these animators, especially when many of them have actually been involved in many shows and movies that you enjoy. Like one great example, and a name that I do recognize over here, is actually Dave Wasson. So right over here, Dave Wasson, and already you could tell that a lot of people are very much helping him out, already receiving over $50,000 US as I'm recording this on his GoFundMe campaign. But apparently Dave Wasson, you may know as the guy who it says here that he is the cartoon genius behind the Cuphead Show, Time Squad, The Buzz on Maggie, some of your favorite Mickey Mouse shorts, and loads of award-winning commercials, shorts, and movie title sequences. So this is just one of many examples that you could go and help out. And like what you could do is just go into these foundations and you can go and make your donation to go and help out if you cannot go and directly help with the Los Angeles wildfires. So in that regards, I just wanted to go and raise awareness of what's been going on. And also, especially my main goal of what I want to do is to raise awareness of how you can help. Because the most important thing is that, yes, we're very well aware of the fires. We're very well aware of the disasters that's been going on. But the right thing to do at this point is to go and actually help out, to go and make sure that the people of Los Angeles, no matter who they are, that they can go and rebuild their lives and put themselves back in place so that they can continue their lives. Because honestly, with what happened, it really is devastating. You know, it really is heartbreaking to see so many people, and maybe there is a chance that even you watching this, you may know someone who has been affected by this. You know, like the best thing that you could do at this point is to go and help them out. No matter like what you can do it's important to go and actually help, whether it be to donate, to raise awareness, to volunteer. Like, as long as you can go and actually contribute to rebuilding Los Angeles after the wildfire disasters, then maybe we can go and start setting things up to make 2025 a little bit better than how it started. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask if there's anything you would like to add or comment about the whole situation, and also if you could think of any additional ways to go and help people out to go and get themselves back up on their feet from the wildfire disasters, please suggest a way. All right, so let's see, what comments do we have here now. Let's see. I want to say thank you for doing this story, Matt. I have family in California. They are okay, thank goodness, because they live somewhere else in California. More than 12,000 buildings have been destroyed, including TV shows and movies that had filming locations, and so far 24 people have died. Oh, 24, geez. And Matt, it's not just celebrities who lost their homes. They could also lose friends. I heard actress Jennifer Gardner lost a friend in the fires. I will do whatever I can to help those people. Yeah, okay, that is true. I'll give you that. That is also an aspect I didn't really think about, that maybe among those people that passed away are those that are like friends of celebrities and stuff like that. So, okay. That I was not aware. I do apologize. Anyways, what else do we have? Someone mentioned that Disney made the biggest donation so far, with $15 million going towards firemen, first responders, and employees at Walt Disney Imagineering. Yeah, I did hear that at the same time. Yeah, like Disney made the biggest donation so far, which honestly, great for them. And also a few other companies so far have also done donations. And while we don't have the monetizable need to go and match that, if we could go and follow that example to go and actually give out a donation, that honestly, it is good. I believe that Mr. Rogers said it best, that in times like these, it's important to go and look at the people who are helping. If you want to see a bright side in these disasters, look for the people who are helping. And that's why it's also very important that you also become one of those people who are helping. Anyways, let's see now. The effects of these wildfires can be described no better than devastating. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see so many people lose their homes, their livelihoods, even their lives. And to show my condolences, I just donated to the LAFD Foundation. Awesome. Good on you, JF. Let's go. Anyways, it wasn't much, but you know the old saying, every little helps. Also, to all those right-wingers saying that the fires happened because of DEI and wokeism, then please, for the god of society, grow the hell up. Yeah, honestly, I just want to even go and add and say, like, yeah, if you're actually like trying to blame wokeism or DEI, yeah, we'll see when your fire, we'll see when the fires burn your house down, and let's see if you're going to go and think if wokeism and DEI is to blame at that point, Let's see if you're going to still think about wokeism and DEI when your house would go and burn down, if you don't have the mental capacity to even think about having any form of empathy. Anyways, let's see now. I actually do live in the Los Angeles area where the Eaton Fires is located, and this had me stressed out. Thankfully, me and my mom are still here, and that fire is starting to subside. With climate change and how greedy billionaires keeping the majority of our water is just a recipe for disaster, there are so many multiple people who I actually know losing everything, and that I want to help them all. This is a moment where all of us have to work together to pick ourselves up. Stay strong. Exactly. And I mean, if you have, that's actually a good starting point. If you have people that that have been affected by these fires, then a great start would be to go and immediately help them out. Because I'm sure at this point, they'll need any help that they can. And, if you want to show that you really are a friend, or that these people care, if you really do care about these people, then your top priority should be to go and actually help them. Let's see what else we have here. Despite I don't live in the Los Angeles area, but wish to do so to do animation work there some way if the whole thing is taken care of, I feel bad for the people in the Los Angeles area for this unexpected event. I hope the people will, the fire under control. Oh, the people will keep the fire under control and hope everyone there is all right, especially the artists and animators. Well, at that point, this is exactly why you have this link over here to go and actually help out the animators. Some of them are unfortunately not okay. So that's why you do have all these GoFundMe pages if you want to go and actually, help them out and pick themselves back up on their feet. Let's see what other, I think I'll go with one more comment at this point. So, let's see, I'll just, I might as well go right over here. So 2025 is not off to a really excellent start. I've been seeing nonstop news about the whole wildfires going on, especially seeing lots of families and recognizable creators and celebrities losing their homes. Last week has been really depressing and devastating, and to our California peeps out there, I'm wishing and praying you all to stay safe during the tough times, especially to the animators there. I'm glad you're spreading awareness about the situation and give us ways to help them. Exactly. So just a quick reminder, once again, if you want to go and help out the people in Los Angeles after the devastating wildfires, you got all these links over here on this Animation Magazine article. You also got the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation, the California Fire Foundation, and also the Wildfire Recovery Fund from the California Community Foundation. So this is just to go and raise awareness for all this. Okay, so now we're going to go on to another break. And when we do return, we're going to go and immediately lighten things up. We're going to get back into some animation news, and we will be discussing what's going to happen next year, because things are going to be shaking up with what Universal is going to offer to us. So stay tuned for that. All right, welcome back. Now, on our next story, don't worry, we're going to go and lighten things up a little bit. I know that it was pretty heartbreaking and sad to hear about the things that's been going on with the Los Angeles wildfires, but now let's go and, have a little bit more of a fun discussion, especially with what's going to be happening in 2026. Now, I know it seems a little bit like, oh, wait, 2026? I mean, 2025 has just begun. Yes, I know, but already plans are in the works for the movies that are going to be coming in 2026. And as it turns out, for Universal, they're going to have a big year with the movies that they have in store. Or more specifically, the animated movies that they have in store, especially when they're changing things up with their release dates. Yes, Universal has officially revealed that they're going to be changing the release dates of several of their upcoming animated features, more specifically with Shrek 5 and the third Minions movie. Now, originally, Shrek 5 was planned to be released on July 1st, 2026, and a lot of people were freaking out about it, especially when it was released so close to Toy Story 5. And a lot of people were thinking that maybe we're going to see the massive clash between two big computer animated franchises releasing their fifth movie very close to one another. Like we're going to see the big battle of Shrek versus Woody and Buzz. Well, unfortunately, folks, that is not going to happen, as Universal has revealed that they are going to be delaying Shrek by about half a year. Instead of being released on July 1st, now it's going to be released on December 23rd, 2026. So still in 2026, but instead of being released in the middle of it, now it's going to be coming out around Christmas time of 2026. At the same time, though, they're not going to go and leave that July 1st release date empty, as they are going to be planning to go and release the third Minions movie on that date. They even stated that originally that third Minions movie was supposed to be coming out the year after, specifically on June 30th, 2027. But now that Shrek's release date, or its original release date, was left empty, they decided, you know what? I don't know if this is true, but considering that the production might be going pretty well and maybe ahead of schedule even, they're going to go and take that Minions 3 and they're going to go and put it in 2026 instead of 2027. Meanwhile, that release date for June 30th, 2027, well, for now we don't know what they're going to be releasing, but they are going to be planning for an Illumination movie, in which it says here, reading from my source on Deadline, it states, another shift going on at Universal, an untitled Illumination event movie will move from March 19th, 2027 to Wednesday, June 30th, 2027. So in that regards, we don't know what that Illumination movie is going to be. Maybe it's going to be a new original picture that they will have in store, or maybe it's going to be another sequel. Like maybe we're going to get maybe The Secret Life of Pets 3 or Sing 3 or something like that. But all we know is that apparently it's an Illumination event movie, and that's pretty much it. So again, just to go and remind you all of the new release dates, Minions 3 is going to be coming out on July 1st, 2026. Then there is Shrek 5 that's coming out on December 23rd, 2026. And finally, an Illumination event movie is going to be coming out on June 30th, 2027. Now, one thing that this article here doesn't mention, but what I do find to be kind of surprising is that in 2026, Universal has not 2, but 3 major animated features released, or actually maybe even more, because, with DreamWorks Animation, they like to release multiple animated films in a year. So I'm pretty sure that in 2026, it's not just, I literally kicked a bucket. Don't worry, nobody passed away. It's just a bucket that just got kicked. For those of you wondering if that sound actually got caught in the microphone. But anyways, as I was saying, yes. So with, how DreamWorks is that, in 2026, it's not just going to be Shrek 5. They're also going to be releasing like 1 or 2 additional animated features. But anyways, along with Shrek 5 and the other possible DreamWorks films coming, we're also going to be getting Minions 3. And also, I believe the Super Mario Brothers movie 2 is going to be released in 2026 as well. So yeah, Universal has a lot that's going to be packed up in that year. So we're going to be bracing ourselves for that particular moment over there. So it's going to be wild to see what Universal will have in store. And not only that, but also we'll see like a lot of the anticipated films of that year will be from them. But with that said and done, I will say, though, that, yeah, maybe there are going to be people out there that will be a bit disappointed that the big clash between Shrek and Toy Story is not going to happen. But instead, it looks like Shrek is going to be duking it out with Ice Age 6 right now. And I mean, you know what? I will argue that I do get it. I understand why they would have to go and delay Shrek 5 from that release date, at least to go and avoid the battle between Toy Story 5. Because if the 2 would actually be released, then what would end up happening is that they'll just cannibalize each other and their box office performance won't be as strong as what it could be. Because, it's very much like what we are seeing right now with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa the Lion King. Now, both of these films are doing very well at the box office. In fact, at this point, we can pretty much say that both of these movies are box office hits. But that they could have probably done a little bit better if both Sonic and Mufasa were released in 2 different release dates. If either Sonic or Mufasa would have delayed like in February, for example, then we would have seen both films actually perform a lot better at the box office than they are now, even if they are doing fine. And maybe if the release dates didn't change, maybe Shrek and Toy Story would have done pretty well while at the box office. But then again, like, that they could, both of them could do better if one was not released so close to the other, regardless of how people may feel or may think how things are going to be with either Shrek or Toy Story, regardless if what critics would say about both of these films. There's a lot of anticipation for both. So in that regards, it's best for both of them to go and maximize profits and just like keep them separate, Now, a lot of people would go and argue, well, then again, what about Minions 3? Wouldn't that go and do the same thing with Toy Story? Well, I mean, technically, yes, but then again, we are talking about Pixar and Illumination. It's now becoming a little bit of a tradition that during the summer that we would get a Pixar film, and then a few weeks afterwards, we would get an Illumination movie, and both of them can coincide very well. In fact, in 2024, we've seen that as a very great example. Inside Out 2 went on to become the biggest animated feature of all time, while Despicable Me 4 still did very well in its own right and actually got very close to earning about $1 billion at the box office. So yeah, with like Minions and Toy Story, they can do very well working together at the box office. And as for Shrek, I think it's going to have a better chance to compete against Ice Age at the box office. So at least there is going to be that will be going on. But also, I will say that what really makes sense about this change of schedules, honestly, I feel like what makes it work is that now they are keeping the traditions. It's a lot like what I just said with Pixar and Illumination, where you got Minions 3 now being released on July 1st, which is usually around the time that Illumination would be releasing their animated films anyways, especially with the Despicable Me movies. They have a long-standing reputation of being released during the summer, of always being like an anticipated summer movie that kids really want to go and actually check out. And it has been working very well for not just the Despicable Me movies, but also with the Minion movies as well. Even with Minions: The Rise of Gru, that became one of the most successful movies right after the pandemic, or even like during the pandemic or closer to the end of the pandemic. But either way, like at the start of the 2020 decade, the Minions Rise of Gru was one of the first big successes. So in that regards, I think it is a much wiser idea to keep up that tradition instead of breaking it, where suddenly the Minions being released around, actually, you know what, just to come to think about it, technically, it didn't really change for the Minions because its original release date is actually for June 30th. So technically, like, the release date wouldn't change. It's hopping from like a whole year. So in that regards, it definitely is fine. But actually, no, wait, scratch that. No, it actually makes sense because technically the original release date was for Shrek. So it would seem a little bit odd that instead of having like a Despicable Me or a Minion movie suddenly, or just an Illumination movie in general, suddenly it would be Shrek. So it would be something that like it would throw people off a little bit. So keeping that tradition does make a little bit more sense. Okay, I almost lost myself there, but then I realized, no. Okay, I caught myself back. But as for Shrek, however, I feel like you could go and make that same argument because now Shrek is kind of starting a little bit of a new tradition for that franchise to be released around Christmas time. Because what Shrek 5 is doing right now is trying to recapture the success of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, considering that movie was released around Christmas time of 2022. And even though it wasn't like a box office spectacular that made over $1 billion and stuff like that, it was still a massive hit for itself, especially when it was released around the same time as an Avatar movie. It was out at the same time as Avatar: The Way of Water, and for what it did for itself, it actually did pretty well. So in that regards, if it worked out for Puss in Boots, then it could also work out for Shrek as well, even if it could end up competing against Ice Age 6. So in that regards, overall, I feel like with this release date change, a lot of it actually does make a lot of sense. It makes a lot more sense that Shrek would be released around Christmas time than it would be in the summer, where it would usually be an Illumination movie or especially a Despicable Me movie that would go and take that spot. It makes more sense that Shrek would now be released around Christmas time, so that maybe it could set a new standard that has been placed by Puss in Boots, hoping that it could go and recapture that success, while at the same time, you also got the Minions that are going to be coming in. Now the third Minions movie is going to be released a lot earlier, especially now proving that with Despicable Me 4, the popularity of these Despicable Me movies and these Minion movies, they're not going to be stopping anytime soon. So you might as well go and keep that momentum to go and continue while it is still fresh. And by the way, I just want to go and mention that it is very interesting with the third Minions movie because considering that it is still the same people that are going to be working on it. In fact, it is stated here that Despicable Me and Illumination veteran Brian Lynch is going to be writing the script, and Pierre Coffin is also going to be the director of the film, considering that he did direct the first 3 Despicable Me movies and the first Minion film. I've heard a lot of people say that, and these are just rumors, by the way, that the third Minions movie might not necessarily be a Minions 3 per se, but rather it could be a spin-off or a different spin-off to the Mega Minions. Now, rather if that's actually true, I don't know, but either way, I could legitimately believe it. Like, if it's a continuation of The Rise of Gru, or if it is going to be like this new Minions spin-off film that's just going to be focusing on the Mega Minions from Despicable Me 4, I feel like either way, it could be believable. But either way, though, honestly, this is all to say that the new release dates make a lot of sense. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go onto the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think of the release date changes of Shrek 5 and Minions 3? Are you excited for both of these films? Are you concerned about what's going to happen with these release date changes? Let me know what you all think. All right, so let's see what we got here. Let's see now. Universal's switch of release dates with their animated films from DreamWorks and Illumination have been pretty wild during this decade. From technically Puss in Boots: The Last Wish onwards. When it comes to the latter studio's upcoming works, it will sound refreshing and beneficial after Pixar's Elio and Hopper in terms of original content. As for the other 2026 sequels, including Ice Age 6, this is one of the factors why I've given up making future movie review videos on recent animated films. All right, let's see here. Honestly, this Shrek delay isn't much of a problem. I just think Minions 3 going to 2026 isn't really going to be a good idea since it's taking time away from the crew that are making the movie. It better be good, Illumination. I'm glad Toy Story 5 is safe from the ogre. Also, Ice Age versus Shrek is so a 2000s thing. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe it could be this, maybe it could be like a marketing strategy to really pit out these two, like the connections between these two franchises, like they're a lot more closer. Yes, it is true that like technically one is a 6th movie and one is a 5th movie, but we are talking about 2 major computer animated franchises that began in the early 2000s. So seeing that clash will still be interesting. Let's see now. These release date switch-ups are very surprising. With Shrek 5 delaying it to December is definitely a smart move, so it can have an easier time competing against Ice Age 6. As for Minions 3, releasing it a year earlier is interesting and will probably work out. Also, 2026 is going to be a huge year for Illumination with both Minions 3 and the Mario movie sequel in April, both of which are going to be massive hits. Oh, I'm sure about that. But anyways, let's see. I'm cautiously optimistic about Shrek 5's delay will allow the team at DreamWorks to cook with it. I mean, Puss in Boots 2 had a delay, and look how that turned out in the long run. But what really concerns me is Minions 3. I mean, that's losing almost a whole year of production, and that's not a good sign. Remember how Free Birds and Cloudy 2 turned out? But my big question is, how is Shrek 5 going to fare against Ice Age 6? It's going to be the next Barbenheimer. Shrike Age? I was thinking more like Ice Shrek or something like that. Oh boy, the ogre's going to get cold now. Anyway, we'll see how the memes are going to go later next year. I wonder what other comments are there to go and read. Let me see. A lot to choose from. All right, let's see. Wonder if Disney is going to give Ice Age 6 a different release date because of this, to give it a better chance at the box office, probably in March 2027 for the franchise's 25th anniversary. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on the production, but I don't really see it change its, I don't know if I could see it change its release date. I mean, it's not necessarily a high priority for Disney. You know, it's not like a Disney animation or a Pixar movie. So in that regards, I don't really see, I could maybe see it go either way. Maybe it'll give it a delay just to give it better chances and avoid Shrek, or maybe it's just going to stay put and they'll just see how it goes. I mean, I don't know how much of a risk Ice Age is to Disney, but I wouldn't imagine it would be that much. Like, they're not going to get, they're not going to go and give Ice Age 6 the same kind of budget that they do with, like, Pixar's movies or Disney Animation's movies. Let's see now. I think I'll read 2 more and then we'll have a break. While Shrek 5 being delayed is disappointing to some, I think it's a good thing because it gives DreamWorks more time to make the movie the best it can be. Oh, by the way, did you know that John Powell, the composer of Shrek 1 and Ice Age 2 to 4, and Chris Meledandri have now worked on both franchises? Talk about both a coincidence and a funny timing. Yeah, I am aware of that. I am aware. All right, let's see now. What other comments would there be? Well, to be straight, I was a bit disappointed by the fact that we have to keep waiting for the film people were optimistic for. Then again, I can agree this is a solid idea for the release date since they can have more time for them to work upon a better yet, not be in the way of making another Barbenheimer move. I didn't think this was going to work anyways, considering the competition. I can't say the same for the Ice Age film. All right, so with that said now, we're going to go on to another break. And when we come back, we're going to have some very chaotic news on what's been going on social media. And this time around, I'm not going to be talking about Twitter. I'm talking about the other mainstream social media sites, or at least the mainstream social media company. So stay tuned for that. And welcome back. Now, on our next story, we're going to talk about social media screwing up. Now, usually when I would go into this subject in particular, some may think that I would be talking about Twitter and how Elon Musk is really ruining the social media platform to the point of being virtually unusable. Well, surprisingly, this is not a case where I'll be talking about Elon Musk. No, I am going to be talking about excuse me, folks, the other social media billionaire who owns a major platform or a bunch of platforms that honestly now has a little bit of some screws loose. And oh boy, are these platforms going to get so much worse. So with that said, let's go ahead and discuss about what's happening on Meta with Mark Zuckerberg. So, in case you haven't heard, Mark Zuckerberg has announced some new changes that are going to be happening on the Meta platforms. And when I say the Meta platforms, by the way, I mean specifically Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg revealed is that now not just he, but Meta will no longer be fact-checking. Yes, they're going to completely remove fact-checking, and what they're going to do instead is that they're going to go and replace it with the same kind of system that they have on Twitter, which is community notes, which they will go and allow users to do the fact-checking for Meta to go and deem if a post or an article or whatever, if it has any form of truth or not. And some people might wonder or might be concerned that this might be a pretty bad idea considering the amount of misinformation that could easily go and be leaked freely onto the Meta platforms. Well, Mark Zuckerberg is pretty well aware of this, and he is aware of these consequences. In fact, he's biting the bullet on these consequences, saying that sure, Meta is going to be spreading a bit more misinformation, but the freedom of speech, though, imagine how much free speech is going to keep on spreading onto our Meta platforms. And when you hear these billionaires say free speech, you know that's not necessarily a good sign. In fact, free speech often leads to what is essentially hate speech and a lot of harassment. So in that regards, okay, that sounds pretty bad, but to make things even worse, in fact, is that on top of getting rid of fact-checking, Meta also decided that they're getting rid of a lot of hate speech policies. Now, this is an article from GLAAD in which they called out Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, in which they're going to be getting rid of a lot of hate speech policies that are specifically meant to go and protect minority groups, whether it be the LGBTQ plus community, women, and several others as well. So without any of those hate speech policies, well, then hate speech is going to flow and those groups are indeed going to be attacked. So to go into this article here, to go explain a little bit more about what has been removed. So I'm just going to go and read you the bullet points here. Below are just some of the changes made to Meta's hateful conduct policies today. Allowance for attacks on LGBTQ plus people, women, and immigrants. Allowance for economic exclusion of women and transgender people. Allowance for social exclusion of women and transgender people. An allowance for claims that LGBTQ plus people are mentally ill. On top of that, there's also the removal of prohibitions against dehumanization of protected groups. So that basically means that now people on social media can go and say things like, oh, women are objects, or they could say that immigrants are criminals. You know, they can go and do that now. They also stated here that there is the removal of prohibition against statements denying existence. There's also the reducing clarity on hate speech, reducing clarity on Meta's definition of slurs, and reducing clarity on generalizations that states inferiority and contempt, which Meta now calls insults. So basically, it's just removing a lot of these hate speech policies in which, long story short, now hate speech is allowed. And apparently there have been leaks that are revealed that it's not just necessarily towards immigrants, women, and the LGBTQ plus community. No, it's basically any minority groups, anybody who is considered to be a part of a minority, well, they're going to be targeted. It doesn't matter. Again, it's not just the LGBTQ plus community. It's not just transgender people. It's not just women. It's not just immigrants. I mean, on top of that, it's also Jewish people. It's also Muslims. It's also Black people, Asian people, brown people. It could be the disabled. It could be autistic. It could be just anybody at this point. It's all free game at this point. And yes, there is a good chance you're going to see some slurs galore that's going to be happening. So don't be surprised if you're going to go on Instagram or on Facebook and you see in the comments section that the R word is going to make such a great comeback. So yeah, as you can imagine, it's a massive catastrophe. And apparently what's been going on in Meta, it's also catastrophic as well, considering that there is a significant amount of workers who are part of the LGBTQ plus people. And let me tell you, they are not having it. Like right now, even within Meta, like the people are just people are just facing backlash again and again, or at least the higher ups right now, in which there are many people amongst the LGBTQ plus community that they're resigning, that, you know, they're pretty much demanding for additional pay, considering that, oh, well, if you think that LGBTQ plus people are mentally ill, shouldn't I go and get disabled pay as well? You know, and making these arguments. So you can imagine that these decisions that Mark Zuckerberg has been making, it's been absolutely catastrophic. And on top of that, Mark Zuckerberg is now pretty much trying to be unapologetically far right as well, because at the same time as these policy changes are happening, apparently there was a new episode of the Joe Rogan podcast in which he came in and actually made his statements and pretty much portraying himself as an insecure incel, in which he would try to go and explain to Joe Rogan that, oh, he thinks society has been so weak because there's not enough masculine energy and that there should be more aggression that should be put out there. So basically trying to he basically wants society to be forced by including a lot more aggressive masculinity in there, just to go and satisfy his little incel-like needs. And a lot of people are saying that he is trying to do a lot of these major changes, the kind that would seem like would be accommodating to far-right extremists, to go and satisfy Donald Trump. That a lot of people are basically portraying this as a way for Mark Zuckerberg to be ready for the next Trump era. In fact, this article that I have here, technically from the New York Times, it even says, inside Mark Zuckerberg's sprint to remake Meta for Donald Trump's era. And basically with all of these changes, they're essentially not that different than what Elon Musk has done onto Twitter, which is to go and ramp up far-right extremism, to go and ramp up hate speech, to ramp up misinformation to be continuously spread on social media. And honestly, all I could see is that this is going to really damage the company in the long run. Like you'll have that little short-term thing where the far-right extremists are going to be happy about it and try to exploit the amount of misinformation and hate speech that they can go and throw out. But already I have been seeing a good amount of exodus that has been occurring on both Facebook and Instagram, that people are deleting their pages, that they're deleting their accounts, and just full-on leaving the website altogether in protest of what Mark Zuckerberg has been doing. And Mark has been very aware of this, and he is quite pissed off about it. But there is one thing that I do want to go and immediately state. Now, I do agree that how Mark Zuckerberg feels and now his new far-right political stance, he has always been that way. I do understand. He's always had this mentality of being this insecure incel that wants to be so aggressively masculine, but in reality, he's just so sensitive and so insecure about himself. I do believe that. But there is something that he is hiding with all this. That desperate political push that he is trying to do, in reality, it's just a mask from the fact that Meta is dying. Now, when you hear people ask the question about what's going to be the next big social media platform that's going to eventually die out and just be executed, that would just immediately shut down. A lot of people are still expecting Twitter is going to be the next one, but in reality, Meta is not far behind. A lot of people don't realize that Meta is actually slowly dying, and there is actually some clear evidence. In fact, there is something that I've seen. It's actually on Blue Sky, and it's specifically right over here from user Chad Loader has a very interesting thread. And this is in response to what Mark Zuckerberg talked about with Joe Rogan in regards to having more masculine aggression be injected onto our society and whatever. And this is what Chad had to say. And it's very interesting. Listen to this. This is fear. Zuckerberg is terrified, and it's making him even weirder. Meta's user base is dying off literally, and he's been unable to reverse the trend. These DEI policy changes are layoffs in disguise. Like return to office, they want to riff without calling attention to stalled user growth. They've overhired relative to projected revenue. Facebook's average user growth is 1.4% yearly from 2020 today, compared to TikTok at 18.4% and Snapchat at 14.4%. Investors don't value Threads user growth because they understand that Threads is just Instagram with a different user interface. The vast majority of Thread users are existing Instagram users. You don't get to credit for double counting. Every second spent on Threads is a second not spent on Instagram. So this is the big thing. And you don't necessarily need to do major research to go and discover that the business of Meta is not actually doing well. Because there's a standpoint, like there's actually this ideology that's been going around, and there's a very good chance that you may have actually heard of this, and that is the fact that in our society, most people view Facebook and Instagram as the social media apps for older people, that it's generally the older crowd that would go and use it. And I don't necessarily mean stuff, and I don't necessarily mean like millennials, like, it's not like, oh, teenagers think that millennials use Facebook and Instagram. That's not necessarily the case. I mean specifically the demographic that are your parents. I mean people like Gen X and even baby boomers are the ones who mainly use Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. They're the ones who go onto that social media. Meanwhile, the newer and younger generations, such as Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're not really that interested in using Facebook and Instagram. They'd rather go and use some of the newer stuff. They would rather go and be on TikTok. They would rather go and be on games like Roblox, maybe Minecraft, and Fortnite as well. They would rather go onto those things for their little social taste on the internet instead of those main social media apps. And from there, with Meta, as Chad stated here, the users are literally dying. And they're dying and the fact that they're dying is something that Mark Zuckerberg cannot control. And it's not like because of like any tragedies and stuff like that, but it's because of stuff like old age. They're just old people that suddenly they're growing too old and suddenly they've grown too old to live in general. And that's why there has been more and more of a decline of usage on the Meta platform over the years. And that is currently what we are seeing right now. Right now, Mark Zuckerberg is desperately trying to go and enact these major changes to try to amp up Meta, to try to go and relive it, to try to make it popular, to make it cool, to make it no different than what Elon Musk is trying to do with Twitter, to try to get that far right crowd onto the platform, to make them, try to sustain the life of both Facebook and Instagram and maybe Threads as well. Try to keep that going. It's just a desperate attempt to keep that alive. And and you might have heard like there are these layoffs and there are these big changes going on that Meta is trying to get rid of their their big diversity, equality, and inclusion sectors and stuff like that. But again, those are just layoffs because they're pretty much at the point where the business of Meta has been going so bad that now they've overhired. There's too many people working at Meta to go and try, there's too many people to the point that they cannot actually make their own revenue. So they have to go and let go of these people. In a way, this is a marketing strategy. It's a PR strategy to go and make this massive change up within Meta and not make it seem like the business is going bad. Even if the PR is bad for Meta, like if people are not agreeing with what's going on, the whole strategy here is to go and make people focus on the politics instead of the business at Meta. Even if it's like the worst case scenario, Mark Zuckerberg would much rather be seen as a fascist than to be seen as failing. Because he would much rather see the headline say that, oh, Facebook is now going to be discriminating the LGBTQ plus community. Facebook and Meta is now going to be spreading as much hate speech as possible. Mark Zuckerberg hates transgender people. Like, they would much rather see those headlines than to go and see, oh, Facebook is going to be laying off a bunch of people because of the lack of growth that's going on the platform, because the business is not going as well. And now the usage of Meta apps like Instagram and Facebook, they're not as popular as what they used to be. Those are the kinds of headlines that they want to go and desperately avoid. They don't want to be seen as a failure. They want to be seen as excuse me, folks. They want to be seen as a company that is still doing good. You know, that's still going well with its business. They don't care about what you think about their policies. You could call them a Nazi as much as they want. But what they don't want you to call them is a failure. They don't want you to call them as out of style, as unpopular, as a way to just get rid of, it's just get rid of the apps because it's not cool anymore. That is their big nightmare. And I'm just going to say, even with the political stuff, even if it would work in the short term, in the long run, however, it's really going to backfire on them hard, because now with the enabling of hate speech and misinformation, the younger generation is going to take note of that. And if they're not interested before in joining Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, they will not. They're certainly no longer going to do so now. In a way, it's very like what Mark Zuckerberg is doing is kind of like smoking cigarettes. Like, yeah, they'll have that, like, best case scenario, there's going to be that short-term satisfaction, but in the long run, it's just going to make the cancer come closer and closer, up to the point that pretty sooner than expected, they're going to go and take that life away. So I thought I would just go and make that, just to go and discuss about that. Because yes, what Mark Zuckerberg is doing is absolutely disgusting, but when you take off the mask of what is actually going on, you'll see that there is a much bigger narrative that says a lot more of what's happening with Meta's business than it is with Mark Zuckerberg's politics. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go onto the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you think about what's going on with the Meta platforms like Facebook and Instagram? What do you think about the new updates? And also, are you still using Facebook and Instagram? I would like to know what you think and if you're still on the platform. Let's see what we got here now. Let's see. This is one of the most offensive things Meta has ever done when they excluded diversity and disability rights and stuff like that. All Mark is doing is destroying lives with zero remorse whatsoever. Hell, I'm always getting hate comments and messages by verified accounts on anonymous accounts on Instagram, all thanks to Mark. Overall, F you, Mark. I hope he gets the Luigi Mangione treatment soon. Ooh, okay. Okay, I don't know if I'll go and finish that, mainly because of, policy reasons, but for now, that is still a bit extreme to say, but yeah, I mean, you never know if in the future if things like this could inspire, stuff like this, like enabling misinformation and enabling hate speech, it could inspire another Luigi Mangione. Anyways, let's see what else we got here. I honestly do not use either Facebook or Instagram myself, but honestly, I'm really not that surprised. While it is debatable if Meta has become as bad as Twitter, seeing Mark Zuckerberg make these changes is really not shocking, especially when nowadays other social media websites are becoming popular, like Blue Sky becoming more popular, and TikTok, or technically TikTok if it isn't banned. Oh yeah, I mean, well, we actually with TikTok, we are going to see soon on what its fate is going to be. So I don't know, maybe I'll end up talking about it in the next episode if something does happen. But again, we'll just wait and see. And also, there is one more thing I do want to go and add is that honestly, I am starting to think to decrease my use of Facebook and Instagram because of this. You know, like I'll at least with my public pages of Matt Brunet, AniMat, and stuff like that. Honestly, I think I'm going to be using less, gradually using it less and less. And if things don't become better with Meta, then it might be at the point where it might be like with Twitter, where I might just quit it altogether. I mean, it's already annoying to use the platform, and some of the users there, they can be quite unhinged per se. So in that regards, it is something that I am starting to think, and I think I'm going to be starting the process like what I've done with Twitter back in 2023, where I'm going to be decreasing my usage of it to the point where I'm going to be training myself to become less and less dependent on those platforms. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a heads up. Let's see what else we have here. Way to go, Mark Zuckerberg. You found a way to piss off your Instagram and Facebook users by enabling more hate speech to undo your platforms. I don't really post on Instagram much aside of seeing stories from the users I followed. But man, what a way for people to leave out the site. I always kind of knew that Meta is dying, but here we are. To quote Magic Mush on their target audience, Facebook is for old people, TikTok is for young people, and Twitter is for mentally ill people. Well, the correct mentally ill people, not the ones that are used to go and discriminate others. Anyways, let's see now. I'm pretty glad to have left Facebook a long time ago, and this news just reminds me to be glad, of course, of leaving Twitter last year. And I'm glad I never bothered with Meta's other platforms. Never did get TikTok, and likely won't now, considering its imminent U.S. ban. I'm pretty content with Blue Sky personally. Hey, that's nice, dude. Hey, honestly, same here. All right. Let's see. This is going to be interesting. Let's see now. At least this is from an actual Gen Zer. Let's see. I disagree with you, Matt. While Facebook is certainly not as popular to us Gen Zers, Instagram is still pretty popular with us, at least everyone I know personally, and still use it frequently. However, I know with the upcoming TikTok ban, everyone I hear refuses to use Instagram Reels as a substitute. Guess it just doesn't have the same oomph. Exactly. That could actually, honestly, I do understand if you don't agree with me with the statement, that's perfectly fine. But that could actually be a strong statement. If TikTok does get banned, and if Instagram does not become the next TikTok, then that is going to be a critical blow to Meta. That's going to be like something that is damaging to Mark, that'll be damaging to Mark Zuckerberg, because if they can't get the TikTok crowd, then Meta is going to be in deep trouble. Anyways, I'll read one more comment over here. Mark Zuckerberg sounds more evil than how he was portrayed in the Social Network movie. I see two ways about this. Zuckerberg really is that evil like Musk, or he's possibly doing this against his own will because Trump maybe secretly threatened him and his company because Meta is facing a suit for anti-competitiveness because the company owns Instagram. Either way, this should not be happening, as I use Facebook and not Instagram to connect with family and friends. Honestly, I think it's going to be a lot more the former than the latter. I think Mark Zuckerberg does have these far-right extremist ideologies. The reason why he's a lot more open to it now than he was before is that in the past, he never had a need to actually go and express it. There was no reason for him to be like very outspoken about his extremist beliefs. But now with Meta's business going under and with Donald Trump coming back in the White House, now he does have an excuse to go and do it, hoping that by being nice to Donald Trump, it can go and help save Meta's business. All right, so with that said, we're going to go on to one more break. And when we do come back, we're going to bring back some fun in which we will be talking about sports. However, there is a villain that entered the scene that a lot of people said have ruined this particular team. Who is this villain, you may ask? Well, stay tuned to find out. And now, people, it is time that we will go and cap off this episode with the grand finale. And we're going to go on to a very rare subject that I don't often talk about here on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, and that is sports. Yes, we're going to have a sports story going on, but what does this have to do with animation? Well, believe it or not, there is a legitimate connection because, as I said before, there is a villain that actually interrupted the game and ultimately caused this team to really lose hard, or at least that's what some sports fans are claiming. But you might be wondering, though, who is this villain? Who is this villain to go and suddenly step in to suddenly ruin this sports team? Well, believe it or not, that is none other than the Dirty Bubble from SpongeBob SquarePants. Yes, the Dirty Bubble just suddenly interrupted a football game and ruined one particular sports team, or at least that's what the allegations would have to say. Now, to go and clarify what the fridge is going on, let me just go and talk about some context, a little bit of background of the whole situation. Now, as you probably know, Nickelodeon is airing some NFL football games to go and actually present some kid-friendly versions of the sportscast, to show the NFL, but through the lens of Nickelodeon to make it fun for the whole family and to get kids more engaged with NFL games. And the way they would go and do it is by including some fun little special effects that happen during the game or during the breaks and stuff like that, and that they would also have SpongeBob and Patrick be the commentators. However, this Saturday, there was the football game between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Houston Texans. And SpongeBob and Patrick would have their fun time, talking about what's going on in the game. But then suddenly, there was this little moment that occurred during the game, which is specifically around the middle, I believe, or maybe the middle of the start, or it's like it's in the second quarter. So let's just go and check out this clip to see what was going on.
But speaking of clean, that's dirty. Is that Dirty Bubble?
Dirty Bubble! Oh no!
Gentle with our head coach. Oh no. Dirty.
So yes, as you can see, there was a little bit that happened during the second quarter in which the Dirty Bubble suddenly came in the middle of this wild card game, and the Dirty Bubble decided to go and kidnap the LA Chargers coach, Jim Harbaugh. And then you see this little bit where Jim Harbaugh is just floating around inside the Dirty Bubble. Now, of course, this was just like a fun little bit. Like, I think it goes without saying that, no, it did not happen. But there is something funny that did occur. Now, there is one thing I want you to go and notice. Look down here at the score of what's been going on in the second quarter of the game. The LA Chargers were actually at a pretty good lead where they were 6-0, and things were looking a little bit bleak for the Houston Texans. But then immediately afterwards, right after the Dirty Bubble kidnapped Jim Harbaugh, suddenly everything just changed. It might as well have actually happened in real life, because what happened to the Chargers was just disastrous. I don't know if it was actually because of the Houston Texans suddenly, like, they just got, like, snapped out of it and pulled off an amazing game. But this 6-0 eventually transformed into 32-12 for the Houston Texans. So not only did the Chargers lose, but they failed hard. And on top of that, it resulted on social media to not only accuse the Dirty Bubble of ruining the game for the Chargers, but ultimately ruining the entire season for the Chargers. So unfortunately, you won't be seeing the LA Chargers at this year's Super Bowl. So honestly, this is actually crazy to see this happen. And I'm just going to go and say right now, I am not a football person whatsoever. Like, I don't follow football in any way, shape, or form. Honestly, I don't really follow much of the CFL either. This was honestly something that I've heard from Moist Critical. Like, I saw Charlie talk about it in a video, and honestly, it just piqued my interest, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, you know what? This would be fun to go and discuss, actually, because this actually feels like something that would fit exactly in this podcast. It fits very well in the cartoon and in the crazy as well. Now, you might think that it seems a little bit silly for people to unironically believe that the Dirty Bubble would be the cause of ruining the Chargers' entire season, especially by messing up with their wild card with his presence of kidnapping Jim Harbaugh. Would that actually be the case? And I'm just going to say right now, to be very honest, I don't think that this is the case with all players, but I wouldn't be surprised if some did unironically believe that. And the reason why is because sports fans, or at least some selective sports fans, are some of the most superstitious people that you will ever meet. And when I say superstitious, I don't necessarily mean that they are the kind of people that would actually think that the number 13 or black cats or stepping on a crack would be bad luck. It's not that kind. I mean that these are the kinds of people that would actually think that there's some kind of supernatural force that would go and either increase or decrease the odds of their favorite teams winning. And what they would go and do is that sometimes whenever the game would be on, they would go and do some kind of ritual either prior or during to go and actually increase their odds, or to do something that they hope would go and increase their odds. And it's not just a ritual, and sometimes it could actually be a totem as well. Sometimes, like, there could be a good chance that maybe you know someone who is like this, that they're not just sports fans, but they can have their own little superstitious belief, thinking that if they have this specific thing, or if they do this specific thing, they would go and increase the odds for their favorite team to go and win. You know, something like, wearing their lucky socks, or that they would have to wear their lucky jersey. Or that maybe in the halftime, that's the moment to go and bring out the snacks. Or that after each quarter or each period, that they would go and have a drink. You know, that they would drink their beer or something like that. You know, they would have, there are these people who would have these forms of superstitions that they believe that if they have these specific things, or if they do these specific actions, then there is a stronger chance that their team could actually go and unironically win. So there are those people who do believe that. So if there are those people, so there is a strong likelihood that there are some of those sports fans that if they would go and watch the Nickelodeon airing of the NFL, or if they would watch the Nickelodeon broadcast of the NFL, and they see this happen, and if they were rooting for the Dodgers, and they want to go and find something to blame on their failure, then you bet they're going to be looking at the Dirty Bubble. They're going to be looking at the Dirty Bubble, and they'll suddenly have a vendetta. Oh boy. Like, if there are any superstitious LA Chargers fans out there, like, honestly, I don't know if I want to talk about them in regards to either SpongeBob or the Dirty Bubble or Nickelodeon whatsoever. Like, honestly, I can imagine that maybe there could be those people that would actually believe that because of the Nickelodeon broadcasting, maybe that could be something to go and pay attention to. That it could be the indicator, depending on who they would go and mess with, that if there's suddenly this Nickelodeon character coming in and they decided to go and mess with a particular team, then they would be most likely to go and lose. Because if it happened with the LA Chargers with the dirty bubble, then it could happen with any of the others following up. And there could be those people that could believe that. Maybe, maybe not, but like, honestly, this is something that I do know. Like, even though I'm not a football person, I am a hockey person, however. As you guys know, since I am a Montrealer, I am a big fan of the Montreal Canadiens. And I am happy to say that so far we've been doing a little bit better than we have in the previous years. So I know how sports people can be. And yes, when there are those superstitious sports fans, there could be those people who will believe in some crazy things for the sake of hoping that maybe their team could win or what might have caused their team to go and lose. Like, even if there are people who don't believe in whatever kind of hocus pocus, not just supernatural, but like superstitious stuff, suddenly superstition becomes real when it applies to their favorite sports team right over there. Now, of course, this entire situation is absolutely ridiculous, and it's kind of funny to see that this outcome would unironically occur, or would actually did occur, where because like that the dirty bubble just so happened to have messed with Jim Harbaugh on the Nickelodeon broadcast of the NFL wild card. But from there, and as a result, the LA Chargers ended up losing there. Like, it's a funny, it feels like a funny set of coincidences that did occur that ultimately led to this conclusion that now the dirty bubble is taking the spotlight and being accused of screwing over a football team. It's one of those things that I feel like I have to go and mention, mainly because of how wild this headline is, or what happened in general. The fact that out of all the SpongeBob characters, it's the dirty bubble, a character that's not often been seen or it's only been seen related to whenever SpongeBob needs a little bit more of a superhero themed episode related to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, like just bringing in the dirty bubble. And suddenly, he takes the spotlight. He is taking over headlines where people are saying that he's the one that screwed over this real-life NFL team. And not only screwing over their game, but screwing over their entire season. And that is the factor that, honestly, I just believe is just purely crazy. Honestly, again, I'm not that interested in sports. I know there's not necessarily a whole lot to go and discuss about here, but I just thought it is a story that it would be a lot of fun to go and discuss about, and especially with how crazy it is. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go and pass this down to the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think about what happened with the dirty bubble, and do you believe that the dirty bubble screwed over the LA Chargers and ruining their entire season? And if you're a football fan, I would love to know what you all think. And especially, I know this is pretty niche, but if you're an LA Chargers fan, I would love to know what you think on this. All right, so, all right, let's see here. I remember I actually watched the Nickelodeon wildcard game, and I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. And I didn't really think much about the moment with the dirty bubble, but honestly, considering with how superstitious sports fans, a part of me can understand why they would think that. Although that's not the worst part. There was a moment where they showed an AI-generated handsome Squidward. Ugh, really? Ugh. I didn't know about that. Anyways, let's see now. But, honestly, I did hear that apparently these Nickelodeon broadcasts are actually a lot of fun. And not just kids, but even football fans actually do enjoy watching the Nickelodeon broadcast because with Tom and Bill, like playing as SpongeBob and Patrick, when they're being broadcasters, they're actually a lot of fun, and they supply some surprisingly great comedy during the podcast. So it adds an extra layer of enjoyment when watching it. So, like the fact that it is enjoyable, like that definitely is a great plus. And it proves that this whole strategy of having Nickelodeon broadcast the NFL is working out extremely well, especially if the quality is in their favor. Let's see now. Man, the fact that an NFL coach being swallowed and captured by Dirty Bubble is beyond hilarious. I'm not a huge football guy, but I still find it hilarious that the LA Charger fans are blaming on the cartoon bubble for their loss. I actually thought you would be talking about the Neil Gaiman allegations revealed by a Vulture article today, but it's understandable to end the episode on a happier note, given the highly sensitive subject matter of the article. Still, what a silly and hilarious way to go. Yeah, I did hear that just recently, or by the time I'm recording this, there was this major Vulture article that called out author Neil Gaiman and his long history of the way that he treated women. And yeah, like maybe I'll be talking about this in the next episode if there's not like a whole bunch of other animation news stories, but it is an intriguing thing to go and read onto. And also, well, kind of heartbreaking considering how Neil Gaiman was considered to be a very revolutionary and impactful author. And I mean, this is the guy who gave us Coraline, for goodness sake. So it very much is disappointing to hear about Neil Gaiman's behavior. And even to this day, it proves that there is a reason why we still need the hashtag #MeToo movement to still be alive and well, to get rid of people like him. Anyways, I'll be straight. I didn't see the sporting event this time. After seeing last year's horrific animation, I chose to skip out on it entirely. Besides, I'm not a sports guy either, especially football, since that game can be dangerous in itself. Ask my neighbor. As a teen, he broke his collarbone during a game and forever not playing. Now he's a doctor. Besides, I thought the story was going to be the major fan outrage with the use of AI animation during the events, although I thought the first was bad. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't even hear about the AI stuff that's been going on. I mean, I understand why people would feel like this right over here would be a bigger story, considering that, the allegation about the Dirty Bubble messing an entire team's season, that is beyond crazy right there. Let's see what other comments are there. You think animation and live sports are a good mix. It's debatable, but I'm finding this fascinating that both Nickelodeon and Disney are doing a lot of sports events recently. All I can say is, screw you, Dirty Bubble. Go back to Man Ray's lair. Also, I'm sorry about the last story about Meta. Hey, it's okay, man. I understand it is frustrating what Mark Zuckerberg is doing. I mean, yeah, honestly, yeah, maybe you took a step too far, but I understand the rage. I understand why you would be upset about it. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, honestly, yeah, and it is funny that I hear Disney is kind of doing this as well, that they're kind of doing the same thing, although it's with the Simpsons characters, that now there's also a Simpsons edition of what Nickelodeon has been doing. Let's see. Are there any other comments to go and read? Just want to go and check. Yes. Let's see now. Man, where's Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy when you need them? Oh wait, I forgot. They're no longer with us since the 2010s. Did no one in the stadium bother to bring in any pencils? But all joking aside, I know some people who still believe in superstition even without sports. I am living in a country where a lot of houses are labeled 3A instead of 4 because 4 is considered unlucky. Yeah, I do know that there are some cultures that do believe the number 4 is bad luck, especially in Japan, for example. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did hear how the number 4 is often associated with death. So yeah, I do get it. Anyways, let's see here. This one I gotta talk about. Honestly, I'm just shocked for a cartoon character that just dropped a football team during the playoffs. It's just mind-blowing the fact that this character got the bad luck and lose the team. It's just mind-blowing altogether that it's not the weirdest thing ever on the Netflix first WWE show where there was an awkward one where Hulk Hogan got booed during the stadium. Have you seen it? Oh, I definitely heard about it, and I did see the clip where apparently on the first major Netflix airing of WWE, they wanted to bring in Hulk Hogan, but he got completely booed off the stage. You know, it honestly gives me a little bit hope for the United States that, you know, that Hulk Hogan at that moment got the American treatment and that Americans are responding exactly how they should, the patriotic way, when confronted with racist douchebags like Hulk Hogan. And it's just to boo them away, to give them the same kind of hate that this bigot gives to others. So at least it's nice to see that it's giving me hope to see that being racist or being a white nationalist is anti-American. It's pretty much terrorism altogether. All right, I think I'll go and read one more comment here. What a great grand finale story on the podcast. I am not a sports fan too, but this is a funny story. People thinking a fictional character is ruining the game is silly. Thanks for doing this story. Why is this called AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Because of this, or maybe something else entirely. Hey, well, there you go. And with that said, that should do it for this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Thank you all so much for joining me on this. I know this has been a pretty big episode with some major topics to go and discuss, but hey, I'm glad that we all went through this together. And with that said, don't forget to go and join me next time for more possible crazy stories that we could go and uncover, just like what we just talked about with the dirty bubble possibly may have been the cause of the failure of the LA Chargers season. And with that said, don't forget to go and subscribe me to either the Animat Live Twitch channel and the Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel to go and follow me for more of these crazy stories. And on top of that, if you are listening to me on whatever podcast service you're listening to, don't forget to go and follow me there, whether it be on Apple, Amazon, or on Spotify or anything else. And with that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.